Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're taking a deep dive into the heart of the American South to explore the rich, complex, and often turbulent history of Alabama. From its earliest inhabitants to its modern-day identity, Alabama's story is a fascinating tapestry woven with threads of triumph, tragedy, and transformation. So, grab a sweet tea, get comfortable, and let's journey through time. Our story begins long before the first Europeans set foot on this land. For over 12,000 years, this region was home to vibrant and sophisticated Native American cultures. Early Paleo-Indians hunted megafauna here, but it was the Mississippian culture, flourishing around 1000 AD, that left an indelible mark. They were master architects and astronomers, building massive earthwork mounds that still dot the landscape today. The largest, Moundville, located just south of modern-day Tuscaloosa, was one of the most powerful political and religious centers in North America, a bustling metropolis with a complex social structure. The primary descendants of these mound builders were the peoples we know today as the Choctaw, Cherokee, Creek, and Chickasaw nations. They developed intricate societies, farmed the fertile river valleys, and established extensive trade networks that crisscrossed the continent. This world was forever changed in the 16th century with the arrival of Spanish explorers. In 1540, Hernando de Soto led a brutal expedition through the region in a relentless search for gold. His journey was marked by conflict and the introduction of devastating European diseases, which tragically decimated the native populations. While Spain laid claim to the area, it was the French who established the first permanent European settlement. In 1702, they founded Fort Louis de la Louisiane, which was later moved and renamed Mobile. For the next century, Alabama was a colonial frontier, contested by France, Spain, and Great Britain, each vying for control of the land and its valuable trade routes. After the American Revolution and the War of 1812, the United States solidified its control. This kicked off a period known as Alabama Fever. Lured by the promise of fertile land perfect for growing cotton, a flood of settlers poured in from the eastern states. This rapid expansion, however, came at a great cost to the Native American nations who had called this land home for millennia. Through a series of treaties, often signed under duress and culminating in the Indian Removal Act of 1830, the Creek, Choctaw, Chickasaw, and Cherokee were forcibly displaced from their ancestral lands. Their tragic journey west, known as the Trail of Tears, is one of the darkest chapters in American history. With the native populations removed, the era of King Cotton began. Alabama, admitted to the Union as the 22nd state in 1819, quickly became a cornerstone of the plantation economy. The state's wealth was built on the cultivation of cotton, a labor-intensive crop that was entirely dependent on the horrific institution of chattel slavery. By 1860, enslaved African Americans made up nearly half of Alabama's population, their forced labor creating immense fortunes for a small white planter elite. This economic dependence on slavery tied Alabama's fate directly to the escalating national crisis. When Abraham Lincoln was elected president in 1860 on an anti-slavery platform, Alabama was one of the first states to act. In January 1861, it seceded from the Union. Montgomery was chosen as the first capital of the Confederate States of America. And it was here that Jefferson Davis was inaugurated as its president. The Civil War brought immense destruction and hardship to the state. Though relatively few major battles were fought on its soil, the Battle of Mobile Bay was a significant naval victory for the Union. The war ultimately led to the emancipation of nearly 435,000 enslaved people in Alabama, but the path to true freedom would be long and arduous. The period following the Civil War, known as Reconstruction, was a time of immense social and political upheaval. The federal government attempted to rebuild the South and integrate the newly freed African Americans into society. For a brief time, black men gained the right to vote and hold political office, and new public services like education were established. However, this progress was met with fierce and violent resistance from white supremacists, including groups like the Ku Klux Klan. By the late 1870s, Reconstruction ended, and white Democratic redeemers regained control of the state government. They quickly moved to reverse the gains made by African Americans. The late 19th and early 20th centuries saw Alabama enact a new state constitution in 1901, which effectively disenfranchised almost all African Americans and many poor whites through mechanisms like poll taxes and literacy tests. This ushered in the Jim Crow era, a system of rigid racial segregation enforced by law and terror. Separate but equal was the law of the land, but in reality facilities and opportunities for black Alabamians were vastly inferior. Despite these oppressive conditions, a new industrial economy began to emerge. Birmingham, founded in 1871, became a major center for iron and steel production, earning the nickname the Magic City for its rapid growth. Coal mining, lumber, and textiles also became key industries, though often characterized by low wages and harsh working conditions. Alabama's deep-seated racial injustices made it a central battleground for the civil rights movement of the 1950s and 60s. The world's attention turned to the state during a series of pivotal events. In 1955, Rosa Parks' refusal to give up her bus seat in Montgomery sparked the Montgomery bus boycott, a year-long protest led by a young minister named Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., which successfully desegregated the city's buses. The movement continued with the Freedom Rides, the violent confrontations in Birmingham in 1963, and Governor George Wallace's infamous "Stand in the Schoolhouse Door" to block the integration of the University of Alabama. In 1965, the march from Selma to Montgomery for voting rights, despite the brutal violence of Bloody Sunday, was a turning point that led directly to the passage of the landmark Voting Rights Act. These struggles, led by countless courageous activists, fundamentally reshaped Alabama and the nation. In the decades since the Civil Rights Movement, Alabama has undergone a significant transformation. The state has worked to move beyond its troubled past. Though the journey is ongoing, its economy has diversified dramatically. While agriculture remains important, Alabama is now a major hub for the automotive industry, with manufacturing plants for companies like Mercedes-Benz, Honda, and Hyundai. Aerospace is another huge sector centered in Huntsville, home to NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center, which has been at the forefront of America's space program since the Apollo missions. Today, Alabama is a state of contrasts and complexity. It's a place where you can explore the ancient mounds of the Mississippians, stand on the ground where the Confederacy was born, and walk across the Edmund Pettus Bridge, a symbol of the fight for freedom. It's a state known for its world-class research universities, its vibrant music scene from Muscle Shoals to Mobile, its passionate college football rivalries, and its stunning natural beauty, from the Appalachian foothills in the north to the sugar-white beaches of the Gulf Coast. The history of Alabama is a powerful, poignant, and deeply American story. It's a narrative of struggle and perseverance, of injustice and the long fight for justice. It reminds us how far we've come and how much work is still left to be done. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey through the history of the heart of Dixie. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you won't miss our next historical adventure. See you next time.